Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be going through my first of the upgrade guides for Aether Drift. So this one is for the Living Energy deck. We're going to be going through this. We're going to be, looking at what I've done to change it, because honestly, to me at least, this Precon out of the box is looking a bit blah. It's a little bit all over the place and stuff, which we'll go through the actual Precon first, then I'll show you my upgrades and everything for it and what I've cut as well. But overall, just looking to take this Precon to the next level, as well as not necessarily make it into an exact copy of either of the two previous energy Precons, because we don't want to, do that and then you just end up having an exact copy of the previous Precon or anything along those lines. So let's start off by talking about, the actual initial Precon, and then we'll look at what I've done to upgrade it. Before we do start though, make sure you guys subscribe, make sure you share the video around, all that kind of stuff. The algorithm is fickle, and if you don't subscribe and stuff like that, this could be the last video you see from me. And honestly, there has just been so much amazing stuff that has come out from my channel over the last kind of, 6 months. We've grown, we've doubled in growth. We've done just amazing things. So I just want to, encourage you guys to go subscribe, all that kind of stuff. So let's go through the actual base Precon first. So this is it here. Our face commander here is Saheeli Radiant Creator. She makes it so that whenever you cast an Artificer or Artifact spell, you're going to get an energy. And then at the beginning of combat, you get to pay 3 energy. And when you do, you get to create a token. There's a copy of a target permanent you control. So any target permanent that is, right? You can make a copy of an artifact, copy of a creature, copy of, enchantment if you really wanted to. And it's going to become a 5/5 artifact creature in addition to its other types and haste, and has haste, and then you sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So one big thing to kind of keep in mind here, and I've made this comparison previously, this is very similar to the Mishra from the Precon, where instead of, you just get it for free though, you do need to pay that 3 energy for it. However, it's a 5/5 instead of a 4/4. It does keep the name of whatever it was, but you can copy anything. You can copy, as I said, an enchantment, a creature, whatever you would like. So that's really great. It's the same as that Mishra as well, where you do need to sacrifice it. So getting into the actual Precon, this Precon, in my opinion, was a little bit all over the place. They kind of wanted to do a number of different things with it. First of all, they wanted to do some artifact stuff. So you'll find that it is quite artifact heavy and quite energy heavy. So there's a bunch of energy stuff and a bunch of artifact stuff, which would be okay, except that doesn't extend into our creatures. And when I initially saw the actual deck, if you look at the Precon face of it, it actually says stockpile energy and then charge up artifact creatures. And I just didn't feel that that was initially what the Precon does. So going through the actual Precon, and if I sort this by mana value instead of by cost, it's going to be a lot better. We've got a few ways to be able to create some artifact tokens and stuff. Our secondary commander, Pianella, we'll talk about in a little bit, but she has very similar kind of, when your artifact creatures deal combat damage to a player, you're going to create 2 energy, and then at the beginning of your end step, you can pay energy, and with that, you're going to create a vehicle based off of how much energy you spend there. So you can pay, 5 energy, and you're going to create a 5/5 colorless vehicle artifact token with flying and crew 2. I really like that idea. And overall, I just like her more as a commander, but I'll talk to you a bit about that when I talk about my upgrades. So going through our actual creatures, we've got a bunch of artifact synergy stuff. So Reckless Fireweaver, Psymaster Thopterist, and then we've got some energy stuff in here as well. One thing that they did add into this Precon, which I thought was a little bit weird, was stuff for cloning. So stuff like Elder Gargaroth here is mostly in here because it's just a good creature, and you can potentially clone it with Saheeli. Duplicant, I think, is very similar. It's there to mostly just get to get cloned. Combustible Gearhulk mostly just to get cloned. There's just not a lot of synergy. Triplicant Titan is 100% just to get cloned. While they are, some of them are artifacts, they don't synergize incredibly well beyond just being an artifact and having a good either ETB or good leaves the battlefield, a dies effect like the Triplicant Titan does here. And most of the other creatures in here, while they do stuff with energy, they don't do stuff with artifacts, or they do stuff with artifacts and they don't do stuff with energy. So, there's kind of like two decks kind of shoved into one. It's the same with like the enchantments, right? These are both to synergize alongside artifacts and stuff, which is really great, but then they don't really synergize well with the actual creatures within the deck unless you actually create some Thopters. Or, this one, I guess, is just whenever you cast artifacts, it's just got energy stuff. So one of the big kind of things that I was drawn to when I was doing the upgrades was kind of tying all of this stuff better together, tying the artifacts, the energy, and like the ETB stuff, all that kind of stuff tie together better into like a more tightly knit precon, rather than this kind of one that I felt had like 3 different-ish themes. We've got 38 lands within here. Overall, the land base is pretty decent. We've got like the Academy Ruins is a great reprint in here. We've got the check lands. We've got the check lands. We've got the reveal lands, and then we've got like the pain lands. All of them, great. We've got some artifact lands in here as well, like the dual color artifact lands. Again, good. They didn't add all the temples in. They didn't add we don't even have a temple of the false gods in here. They've finally stopped adding Temple of the False Gods into every precon, which is great. The Saheeli is great in here, and then our sorceries here are mostly just around a couple ramp, and then a couple board wipes, and then some artifact kind of tuning stuff, and some energy stuff, I guess, with Confiscation Coup and Attune with Aether. So having a look, as I said, like as you've kind of gathered from this, I just felt the precon was a little bit all over the place. So getting into what I've done. First of all, I've changed over to PNLR, Chief Mechanic, to be our commander. I just felt that overall, if I wanted to go with artifacts, I felt that she was better. And if you were going, if you didn't care as much about artifact creatures, then definitely Saheeli's good, and you can use that copying effect kind of stuff. But I didn't want to rely on that copying effect because I didn't want this to feel like just a copy of the Mishra precon, and I didn't want this to as well feel like a copy of the Satya precon. So if you don't know who Satya is, he was the face commander for the Modern Horizon 3 precon, and he was around creating tapped and attacking copies, and you get to create token copies of things that you attack. So it was this one was very much around cloning. And I'm actually really surprised that they went with something very similar for Saheeli, because they're both around cloning, which, I guess Satya's more permanent cloning, while Saheeli's temporary cloning, and the way they get their energy is different, but still, I would much prefer going a more unique route with PNLR and moving towards this kind of artifact creatures combined with energy stuff. So if I go this and sort by a group by color tag, then instead we can switch to just showing our additions here. Sort this by our mana value, and I've capped this at a $50 additions. There are 21 new additions to do this precon, which is a few, I realize, but also, as I said, I felt the precon was a little bit all over the place to start with, so I wanted to go more like a clearer route with the deck. There is a couple new cards in here that have not been printed yet because they're printed with Aether Drift, and currently they are sitting at $0 because they aren't out. The pre-order prices for them were like sitting at $20, but they are both rares. I doubt they hit $20. The repurposing bay may be more expensive. The Thopter Fabricator, I doubt it, but still. So going through what my additions were. First of all, we've got Green Belt Rampager. This one in here is in because it's just going to be able to enable a crazy combo that we can get a whole bunch of energy with. Because we've got a few different things in here that are, whenever we create energy, create additional energy. When this comes in, we're going to, when it goes out, we're going to create more energy, and then we can use Primal Prayers down here to be able to cast it for its energy cost. So it's going to cost 1 energy to come in, and then when it leaves, we're going to create an energy, right? So that's just an infinite loop there. Now that is going to go neutral until we add in other stuff, such as our Is It Generatorium, which is going to, whenever you create an energy, an extra energy. Or, there's a couple other ones in the actual deck as well. Or stuff that's like whenever a creature enters, create energy, etc. Those will be able to just create a great synergy with Greenbelt Rampager and create a huge amount of energy from that. And then that energy we can pump into Pia and LR at the end of our end step. That's another great thing about Pia, is that she is a big energy dump, which is something that we haven't really seen within either of the two precons in the past, in my opinion. Like, you know, we've got the Madison Lee one, which you can spend with her like some energy each turn and stuff, but you're not going to have a huge energy dump. While PNLR, we can pump in as much energy as we want, create this huge, you know, 50-50 vehicle token if we have the energy to be able to, and then from there just swing in with it. And there's a couple other cards in here that are big energy dumps that we can make use of this infinite energy with the Greenbelt Rampager. The Artificer class reduce the cost of the first artifact you spell play per turn, but the last bit here is better. At the beginning of your end step, create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control. So we've got a lot of really great artifacts in here. Creating a token copy of it is going to be amazing. Is it Genitorium? Just boom, create additional energy, as well as you can use it to draw cards. Saheeli, as I said, within the actual precon, the base precon, we do have this kind of weird create token copies and clone things in it. And this Saheeli does very similar. It's very similar as the actual Precon Commander. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is essentially very similar to that, except it doesn't have stuff to do with energy. So we're going to use her to just create more token copies, because we're going to have a lot of token copies. Because I have turned this deck into a very hardcore create token copies and create a whole bunch of tokens and create a whole bunch of Thopters deck at the moment. It's going to be really, really great. The Crystal Skull allows you to be able to play stuff from the top of your deck. Adrix and Nev, now we're going to create double the amount of token copies. The Repurposing Bay is a new card, which has a very similar effect to like a birthing pod, except for artifacts, like the new Iron Man card. Thopter Fabricator, create more artifact creature tokens, more Thopters. There is a lot of Thopters within here. And then we've got like Mechanized Productions to be able to potentially use that as a win con. We've got Urza in here that's going to allow us to be able to tap all those for color to add blue, as well as we can also create this huge construct with it. We can also create token copies of this Urza, and from there create more of the constructs as well. Bruticlad is going to be a big win con, because it's going to allow us to create all our Thopters, turn him into whatever other token we want, which is great. Gontais, I'm surprised that's not in here, because now we're going to, anytime one of these Thopters enters, boom, we're creating energy. Rashimi and Ragavan create some, treasures, be able to steal stuff with it. And then we've got Displaced Dinosaurs as well as another win con. So now each of those Thopters that is coming in as a 7/7 dinosaur artifact creature Thopter with flying. And boom, now we're swinging out with all our dinosaur Thopters over the top of everyone. Unwinding Clock, I think that's pretty obvious. Most of the other stuff in here is probably pretty obvious as to why it's in here. But I've mostly just kind of changed the deck over to create a huge amount of Thopters and then be able to generate a whole bunch of energy from those Thopters, be able to dump it into Pia to create a huge, vehicles that then we can man with our Thopters if we want to. We've got a better counter here, in my opinion, with Electro Siphon, because that's going to give you energy based off of what you counter, and because we've got Pia as our energy dump, that's going to just be able to go off the rails with it. So now if we go and have a look at what we have cut from the deck, if I switch this over to type and then scroll down to down to the bottom, 1 second. Oh no, it's not type, it's categories. Categories. Here we go. So I've cut one forest because in the base precon there was 38 lands. I don't think we needed that. But most of the other stuff I've cut is the stuff that was mostly in there just because it was kind of good stuff, or it was in there to be cloned. Soul Guide Lantern. It's just an artifact. It's not needed. Reality Shift, we've got enough removal. We didn't need that. Arcane Denial, where I replaced with a better counter. And then we've got some other stuff that was just creatures that weren't artifact creatures, and were mostly there for just energy. We've got better energy stuff now, so that's fine. Or it was stuff that was in there because it creates artifact tokens, or because we want to clone it, and it just wasn't really necessary within the deck without other stuff that's going to generate better Thopters, more Thopters, or just generally be able to do better stuff. We also cut the Conjurer's Closet, which is great because, you know, now you can use that in a different deck. But given the fact that we've kind of not got all that much amazing, like we've got some ETB stuff, but not enough that I can justify us paying, you know, 5 mana to be able to get this out, to be able to flicker one thing per turn. It's just not going to be worth it. Some of the bigger creatures as well we've cut because they were mostly in there just before, because that way you could potentially clone them. But I didn't really feel the necessity to kind of keep them around when we're going to switch our face commander to be more focused around what the actual deck was to begin with and what they advertise it as an artifact creature energy deck. You know, some of these big creatures here, while they are great, and if you wanted to keep it as Saheeli, they're going to potentially be, you know, worthwhile keeping, like a Triplicate Titan. If you're going to be creating a token copy of that all the time, then boom, that's going to be amazing. But overall, with the changing the focus over to the more artifact creatures and the more energy, I just don't think it's a necessity to kind of keep it around in the deck. So most of the stuff I cut was the kind of just generic good stuff, and the stuff that didn't really fit into our game plan as well as it probably should have, and then kind of changing it over to more of these like tokens and Thopters and just cool stuff like that I felt kind of suited the deck a lot better. Now I'm going to put a link to this down in the comments, and down there, you know, you'll also be able to find the link to subscribe and also to be able to join up and become our member, because then, you know, you're going to be able to get potentially some deck techs coming up that I'm going to be doing, especially around Aether Drift. I'm so excited around vehicles. Vehicles are one of my favorite things within Magic, so I'm very excited for that. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think there is an upgrade that I potentially missed here? Do you think that overall, you know, these upgrades are going to be a big kind of bonus to it, or what do you think? That's it for today. Have a great day and goodbye.